I'm Blaine Winnicky with Advanced Real Estate, and I am here today with Craig Friendling. He is my managing broker here at Advanced Real Estate in Crown Point. Thanks for joining me with a little interview so we can kind of touch base on, I want to touch base with you on what the market is actually doing, comparing to what it's been in the past. What are we looking at moving forward? And I ask you because you've been in real estate longer than probably most of the agents that are out today. So
it's so weird to think that, but yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, when did you start being in real estate? When did you begin? And, was it before or after the 2008 market? And yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, awesome question. I first got licensed, many people know I was in the military, and then I was stationed in North Carolina at Fort Bragg. And then right after, I signed out what we call terminal leave, but basically you save up 2 months vacation, you sign out 2 months early, and you're technically on leave for the last 2 months of service or whatever. So I signed out on terminal leave in August, and it becomes important for us in a minute here, but in August of 2001, and then my legal exit date was October of 2001. And obviously in 2001, the big thing we had in September of 2001 was the trade centers being attacked on September 11th. I was actually in real estate school at the time that happened. So I got my license. I joined the National Association of Realtors and North Carolina and all that kind of stuff in, I think it was November of 2001 or October of 2001 is when I first got started. A little 2-year-old Craig Friendling was, running around. My ex-wife now, but my wife at the time was pregnant. She delivered Ethan in January of 2002. So anyway, I've been in real estate pretty much ever since. Not pretty much ever since. When I moved back to Indiana, where I'm from, they lost reciprocity because of some real estate rule had changed or whatever. So I had to go through real estate school again. So I didn't get relicensed in Indiana until late 2002. So I've been, but like I said, I was still a member of. Well, I think I was. Maybe I lost 7 months there, or 6 months while I was getting my license in the other one. In Indiana, but basically since 2001.
Over 20 years.
That's
a chunk. So you've gone through the 2008 market.
Yeah.
Which everyone knows was a very significant time in real estate.
It was. And I'll tell you what, the 2000, probably 5, 6, 7, the ramp up phase was the first time in my career where I saw a seller's market like we just experienced, or we're kind of still in right now. But because they damaged the borrower's strength kind of with all the rate increase. I shouldn't say they damaged it. They just changed it,
So that leads me to my next question. What is the biggest correlation between the market today compared to the whole 2008 crash? And is it similar? Is it different? How should we really gauge them to each other?
Wow, that's a tough question. I guess the first thing I would start off, and also I'm always a contrarian, but why? Why would you want to compare them? I mean, I know as human beings we all love to be certain about what we're doing, and we don't like being uncertain and things like that. But I would say it's similar in the fashion that it's the only 2 times since 2001 that I've ever seen a seller's market. It's been a pretty dominant buyer's market throughout my entire career, with the exception of the 05, 6, 7 kind of ramp up phase, I'll say, and then I would say the COVID market, and we'll get to more reasons why I think that happened and things like that. But yeah, it's similar in the fashion that we're doing that. Back then, the weird thing, there was a lot of 100% down programs and things like that. A lot of buyers that could get down payment assistance programs that were these different third-party organizations that largely were non-for-profits that were basically it was a legal workaround having a second mortgage or overextending that home or whatever, the credit, the debt to income ratio and stuff. So it was different back then, but still the same thing. And we were just helping people buy and sell property. Property even back then did not move that fast. We didn't get to, I've never seen here we have less than a 1 month supply of inventory, which we've never seen that before.
Right.
So this was the only market that ever had that. So that's very interesting. Back then we did not have escalation clauses, appraisal gap things. We didn't do any of those things. See, Neil?
See ya.
We didn't have any of those things. So very weird. But again, these are tools we use today to sell homes, just like back then where you had those foundation that were doing down payment assistance programs. They had those back then. So there's always something. There's something that, in 10 years from now, economists are going to blame for the reason for the next crash or whatever,
Right.
But real estate is cyclical, and we are in that cycle. But to answer your question more so or whatever, more closely, it's different, but it's similar. And I still think right now, the good news is there's always people that want to buy or sell property, and that's what they need great real estate agents for, great realtors to help them do that, and they still need that to this day. So
Yeah.
that's something awesome.
Yeah. So what would you say is maybe the biggest misconception about the market? Because we see all the headlines, a lot of fear mongering. We're going to have another crash like we had in 2008.
Yeah.
And a lot of them is for clicks.
Yep.
So what do you see, being a professional for 20 years and seeing almost everything there's been under the sun, at least, in the most recent memory, what's the biggest misconception out there that so many people tend to want to believe or, want to hang their hat on, but may not be the truth?
Gosh, now that one, I almost should have thought about that one a lot more before the interview, because here's what I would say, and I hope this doesn't trip. I think this is going to trip up one of your next questions or whatever. But okay, we just came out of one of the weirdest pandemics, that we've not weird, but the only time we've ever done this in like our civilized society, the way we live now with the internet and all that kind of stuff. We've never experienced this before, where the global economy basically shut down for months. And so I guess the biggest misconception, and what drives me more crazy than anything, is, again, I said it earlier, like human beings, we crave certainty. We want to know what's going on. We want to be in our comfort zone. We don't like not knowing things. But
why would I invest in a house if the world's about to end?
Well, that is true. But also, it's like everyone wants, like, I hate to say it, but a lot of citizens don't trust the government or the media, because we found out during COVID, basically all have been exposed to be lying to the public. So, and just like, and not to paint anyone else in that same light or whatever, but it's like economists, even in real estate, there's a lot of real estate speculators that, oh, look, the market's going to do X, Y, or Z. Well, how can you be so confident? We just came out of something that we've never experienced in our lifetime ever. We just had the most dominant sellers market we've ever seen in the real estate market. The global economy right now is probably as fragile as it's ever been, as many countries are still recovering from COVID's effects and things like that. So how on earth would any economist, any real estate speculator, how could anyone be so confident as to what we're about to watch? So I'm not doing anything. I train my agents based on old school, like relationship marketing type trends, like, hey, stay in touch with your loved ones, talk to them periodically, make sure they know where to send and how to help you in your business by sending referrals towards you, or getting their information and giving it to you. I mean, whatever you want to train them. Those tried and true methods are not any less effective than they were 20 years ago. Those, in fact, I would say they're more so effective now, because as every agent over the last decade has moved to automate all the communications with their clients, it's exactly what bigger companies that try to do that found out they cannot, they can't do it as effectively. Like even this video you're doing right now, Blaine, you've got your own followers that watch your videos. You've got people involved in the community that like your videos and things like that. This is the type of things that I think agents should be doing, and this is timeless. It always works. The old adage is everyone knows two people that are going to buy or sell a house in the next 6 months. And the great thing that I've had trainers in my past, and they're saying your job's just to go find that needle in the haystack every day. Every day you got a haystack. There's two needles in that haystack. Get sifting. That's basically it. And I think that old school, when I train agents, and I've had agents complain to me like, oh, you're so old school, Craig, you should be doing this on Facebook, you should be sending them up on what we call 12-touch email campaigns and all that stuff. Fact of the matter is everyone also knows at least 2 real estate agents, right? So it's like, how many emails do I need to get every month telling me, oh, it's time to put my clocks ahead or put them back? Or how many emails do I get to tell me it's St. Patrick's Day when my phone's telling me that, Facebook's telling me, Google, I don't know. And I think that becomes noise. And quite frankly, I think the average consumer doesn't want that type of generic, non-brand. I mean, well, it's branded or whatever, but not. There's no. And just as we shouldn't expect someone to give us all your referrals because I sent you 12 emails. I mean, I sent you 12 emails that reminded you that Christmas is on the calendar. Like, okay, well, thanks. I didn't ask you to do that, but whatever. I hope that makes sense. But I guess what I'm saying is, I got way off track on that one.
No.
But my point is
the way Craig Friendling does.
yeah, no one should be confident about what the market's going to look like. I mean, the good news is people are always going to need to live in housing. That's our job, is to help people acquire or sell their housing or real estate, and there's always a need for that. No matter what, there's always a number of births, divorces, marriages, investment property purchases, sales. There's always things like that drive the market. So that's something that there will always be a need for realtors that are going to be there and do a good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, back in just to speculate with the 2007-8 thing too, housing was greatly affected by that, and took a big downturn in the past. That's what the economy. There was economic factors also that were at play there. Those factors aren't necessarily at play as much here. The only reason housing is being affected right now is because they're trying to curb inflation, so they're raising the interest rate. Housing is a collateral damage to that. They are aware of, the Treasury, they're aware that that's going to be a negative thing, but for the greater good, they are doing that. So I don't think, it's not like it was back then. Back then, the demand died off and things like that. So it's apples and oranges, comparatively speaking, but it was two sellers markets,
right.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, and one thing I see, and people ask me a lot about, is, well, it's going to happen like 2008 because, prices, went up and then there was a crash. So it's going to happen this way too. But to me, the biggest reason for the 2008 situation was what they call predatory lending. Almost anybody and their dead grandma could get a home mortgage with nothing down.
It was very easy back then.
It was very easy. And now there's more regulations in place than there's ever been.
Yep.
So it's not like they're just giving free money as easily as they were back then. So really, if we ended up with a crash, it wouldn't be for the same reasons, like so many people may want to think.
No, that's a very good point, Blaine, and I agree with you. The only thing I would say to that is all these people that are saying, hey, we're going to experience it for this reason or that reason. I don't know how you can be so confident, because how do you price a property? What do you need to price a property out easily?
Other homes that have sold in the market.
Yep, we call those comparables, right? We call them comps. Okay, so what comp do you have of the current economic situation coming out of a 2 or 3 year pandemic and a weird economy and a weird political climate and a total breakdown in the social confidences in the government and the media and things like that, and all the wokeness, not to get too crazy, but you have all these weird things that are all converging all at the same time. So I would like to know how an economist can say, oh, this is what it's going to be like. It's going to be like '08 because of this reason. Well, how do you factor in a pandemic that we've never experienced before? How do we factor in a run on the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency of the world? How do you factor in all these bigger macroeconomic factors? How are you basing that? Largely, when people tell me that this is what's going to happen, I speculate that that their confidence exceeds their intelligence in the matter.
Oh, I get it. So one last.
I love that phrase.
One last question on the topic is, we're here in Northwest Indiana. I qualify us as like the suburbs of Chicago, and we're not too far from the border, right up against it. And I saw today that the housing market in Chicago, and we're both licensed in Illinois.
Yep.
So we have a heads up on this. We're not completely oblivious to the situation. Is they are at they have more listings now than they have had in the last 9 months on the market. Obviously, I don't think that's where we're at right now.
We're not.
So how does the Illinois market, the Chicago market, kind of affect us? Are we tied in together, or how are we separate?
Well, I saw one statistic it was probably about 6-8 months ago or something. and I believe it was from the what would have been the 2022 and 2021 markets that over 19,000 households had moved out of Illinois into Northwest Indiana. That's a huge number because, I mean, that's a huge number for Northwest Indiana to pick up that many more people and real estate transactions. So I think the good and the bad is this, regardless of what anyone's opinion is of the climate, the political climate, or the tax climate of Illinois, it's way more expensive to live in the same house in Indiana as it is in Illinois. It's more expensive in Illinois. Yeah. That house, the taxes are a lot higher. And don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing any stones here.
The higher taxes.
They also have nice museums. They've got public transit. They've got Chicago, one of the best cities in the country.
Right.
So that's fantastic. We don't have those things, so our costs can be lower. But our taxes are capped at 1%. Their property taxes are not. So the good news is, it's so much cheaper, the cost of living, but you have to, you're going to have a longer drive time possibly. Although we are on the same kind of like the economic band around like Naperville, like the kind of the outer suburbs a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we're that distant. I mean, we're 20 something miles from downtown. Yeah. So it's not, we're not out in the farms out here in Indiana. Although there are some, there's plenty of them, but there's plenty of farms in Illinois too. So
a lot of those farms, at least in like Lake County and such, their farmland is being converted into residential land.
Yeah, to make room for all the citizens coming over from there. Exactly. So that's great, and welcome. Come on over. Enjoy our great cost of living. Bring some better food restaurants, and we actually have some nice restaurants that have been opening up. So
especially here in Crown Point.
Crown Point's got a lot.
Yeah, they've got, especially in the last just couple of years, they've got some really nice ones that have come through.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. Yeah, so I love it. Keep coming over. Yeah, bring upgrade our. We'll lower your cost of living and you'll increase our culture. So I like that. It's
Sounds good. Well, thanks very much, because it's nice to talk to someone who's been in the market long enough and seen so much on kind of where their take is, because it's easy for me. I mean, I've been in real estate for a handful of years now as well, and I have my own viewpoints, and I may not agree with everything you say, but at the same point, that's why we have these conversations, to make sure that we're throwing ideas out there, different perspectives, and we can throw it off each other and help each other out. And then in the long run, it helps out people, the sellers and the buyers in the market, so they're more educated on the situation. So thank you very much for meeting with me and giving your time.
Hey, thanks for having me. Anytime, Blaine.
All right, thanks very much.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one.
You too.